Welcome to Globewatch with me, Charles EBUNE. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 brought the world to a brink of a nuclear holocaust. Can tensions today in North Korea over its controversial nuclear program go beyond the Cuban missile experience of 1962? That is the question that my guest today is seeking to provide an assuring answer as the Director General of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Ahmet Uzumcu, welcome to Globewatch.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Back in 2016, the Chemical Weapons Prohibition Agency claimed that 64,437 tons of chemical weapons had been destroyed, amounting to about 91% of globally destroyed or declared stockpile. Are you comfortable with that data?
Yes, I am. Actually, the percentage since then has increased to 96% now. So there is a remaining 4% which needs to be destroyed. And the major possessor states, the Russian Federation is expected to complete its destruction by the end of this year, and the United States by 2023. So it's a great progress.
You spoke of a great progress. You are very much aware that there are so many nations that have declared their chemical weapons stockpile. Syria, for example, today has at least 24 out of its 27 nuclear weapons facilities were still functional by 2016. Does that in any sense destroy the credibility of the 2013 Nobel Peace Prize, which you won for a job well done?
I don't think it does. Actually, when we received the Nobel Peace Prize, when it was announced, Syria was just a new state party, which has made its declaration during that year. And we were able, as the OPCW, to take the lead in removing its chemical weapons stockpile outside of the country and destroy them elsewhere. Again, our inspectors and experts were deployed to Syria to verify the destruction of the equipment for production of chemical weapons. But all this relates to declared facilities and declared stockpiles. At the moment, we are trying to find out whether Syria has declared everything, and we want to assure the rest of the membership at the OPCW organization that Syria's declaration is complete and accurate. So this is a process which is still underway.
It's really a process which is underway. You quite remember that back in 1968, the non-proliferation of nuclear material convention was signed, passing through the chemical weapons convention. You can talk of strategic arms limitation talks in the 1990s with the Bush administration and the Gorbachevs and others. But this is the sad reality of what we have in the world today. 1,656 tons of sarin gas exist. 1,395 of summer nerves agents are still available worldwide, and 2,451 mustard gas is still available. Is it extremely dangerous for humanity?
We have still 4 countries which are not party to the convention: Egypt, Israel, South Sudan, and North Korea. Among them, North Korea is suspected to have an active chemical weapons program and large stockpiles. So that's really worrying. The international community is rightly focused now on the nuclear capacity and missile evolving missile capacity of North Korea. But equally worrying is the chemical weapons arsenal within this country, which threatens the security and stability on the Korean Peninsula and beyond. As to Syria, there have been some allegations of use of chemical weapons since 2014, and we took these allegations very seriously as the OPCW, and I have established a fact-finding mission to investigate those allegations. There have been some reports which confirmed the use of chlorine as a weapon, as well as sarin more recently as a weapon in northern Syria, which was used on 4th of April. Now, the issue is how to identify the actors of those attacks, and there is a mechanism which is established by the UN Security Council in 2015, which is called Joint Investigative Mechanism, which is now working on identification of perpetrators. That's extremely important to preserve the international norm against the use of chemical weapons. If we are able to identify and prosecute and punish them, then I think we'll be able to strengthen the norm.
Well, I just want you to remind our audience what the work of the Chemical Weapons Prohibition Agency actually entails. Can you remind us your mission statement?
This is an organization which is established in 1997 to oversee the implementation of the convention, which was negotiated in Geneva for more than 20 years. And this was really a big investment by the international community, and a lot of efforts were spent to make it happen. This convention has been implemented for the past 20 years. We just commemorated the 20th anniversary, and a big success has been achieved as to the destruction of existing stockpiles. But at the same time, the challenge is to prevent any further use of such weapons in the 21st century, and to prevent their re-emergence, to prevent their use by non-state actors, in particular terrorists. All these issues are on our agenda, and states parties are collaborating very closely, and we hope that these challenges also will be met in a satisfactory manner in order to contribute further to global peace and security.
The United States of America, for example, contains or is host to some 3,100 tons of chemical weapons alone. Can I have an idea of the global stockpile today, and how do they constitute a menace to global peace and security?
And actually, we had 8 member countries, including Syria, which declared chemical weapons to the organization. And out of 8 countries, 6 already have destroyed their stockpiles under the verification of our experts. The Russian Federation is expected to complete the destruction of stockpiles again under the verification of OPCW experts with their physical presence also at those facilities, is going to complete by the end of this year. And in the United States, there are still 2 facilities. One of them is already operational. The other one is being built.
You are talking of the facilities in Kentucky, in Bluegrass, and the other one in
Bluegrass
Colorado.
and Pueblo, Colorado. The one in Pueblo, Colorado, has already started destruction last year, and is moving ahead. There have been some technical problems, but I think they are now resolved. So the progress is underway. As to Bluegrass, it's going to be operational in 2020. These are very sophisticated facilities, paying attention to the safety and security of the people who work there, of course, but also of the people who live in the immediate vicinity. So that's a very dangerous, very delicate operation, a very costly one. I'm satisfied as to the commitment of those state parties which possess chemical weapons, and their determination, in fact, to go ahead.
Well, you are very much aware that to denuclearize the world, to stop chemical weapons, we certainly need to have a control of the sources of these raw material used in their production. There are rumors that there is a secret deal between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and North Korea, which has huge potential of uranium. You know, even during World War I and World War II, there is some material that left the DRC, by then it was not in that format, to those countries. How much control do you have of the sources that leads to the production, storage, and use. How much control do you have of it?
The chemical weapons convention is quite different than, in fact, other mechanisms which deal with the nuclear issues. So we are only handling the chemical part. And there are, of course, raw materials which are accessible, which are available in the market.
If I understand you clearly, your job is mostly limited at the level of use.
No. We are also monitoring the transfers of dual-use chemical materials. Every country has the obligation to declare what they produce, what they consume, what they export, what they import when it comes to dual-use chemical materials. So this monitoring is underway, and we are actually, when there are discrepancies between those declarations, we try to resolve them, reconcile them. And that's extremely important from a non-proliferation point of view. The goal is indeed to prevent any diversion of those materials so that they are not misused. And we are worried about a possible access by non-state actors. So that's also takes us to awareness raising among the chemical industry, among those people who are dealing with those chemicals on a daily basis. So all these efforts, in fact, are focusing, in fact, on prevention, on the re-emergence of those chemical weapons. It's good that we were able to destroy our existing stockpiles, but it's not sufficient. So we should prevent any misuse of chemistry, any diversion of dual-use chemical materials which may harm people and environment.
Well, on the 6th of September, speaking in one European capital, this is what you said concerning at the disarmament conference. Let me just give you a quotation of one of your utterances. The Chemical Weapons Convention can serve as an excellent example of what can be accomplished with political will by the international community. And you went further to say business that is unfinished and challenges that are serious. Can you decode that? What did you mean by that? What are the challenges involved in this entire business?
There are several challenges, but the main challenge for today is really to prevent the terrorists having access to chemical materials, to prevent them using chemical weapons against people, innocent people. It happened in Iraq and Syria. Daesh has used sulfur mustard. They were able to produce and use sulfur mustard. We are worried that those foreign fighters, which are now in Iraq and Syria, may go back to their countries of origin and take those weapons or produce again and use them. So that's the main challenge. The second main challenge is the advances in science and technology. We need to monitor those advances so that these advances are not misused. So, of course, we don't want to put a straitjacket to those research activities and so on. Nevertheless, we should be aware that those technological advances may be misused by some people. So these are the challenges that we need. We have the necessary mechanisms, and we need to cooperate more with other organizations, and state parties, of course, need to cooperate more.
You just spoke about Syria and Iraq. You know, today when you say chemical weapons were used in Syria and Iraq, people tend not to believe. And this is why they tend not to believe. A quotation from President Bush back in the early 2000s. Iraq has stockpiled biological and chemical weapons and is rebuilding the facilities used to make more of those weapons. We have sources that tell us that Saddam Hussein recently authorized Iraqi field commanders to use chemical weapons, the very weapons that the dictator tells us he does not have. That is a quotation of President Bush. How do you convince the world today when you say there are weapons used in Syria? Because this did not happen.
We are a technical organization, and our experts are technical people. When Syria declared its chemical weapons in 2013, so we provided our expertise to the international community, and we took the lead, in fact, in verifying the chemical weapons of Syria and their destruction later on. And when it comes to the allegations of use, again, whatever we did was based on science and technology. So they took samples, they interviewed people, they used all the traditional procedures, and they concluded that chemical weapons were indeed used in Syria, or chlorine as a weapon. This is a toxic chemical which is used on a daily basis, but it may also harm people depending on its density.
Mr. Director General, let's take a pause. When we say chemical weapons, what do we actually refer to?
When we say chemical weapons, these are toxic chemicals which may poison or affect, harm the human beings or the environment. All these are listed in our convention, but according to the convention, chemicals which may not be listed on the convention, but if they are used to harm people, they are also considered as chemical weapons. So this is a rather, we call it general purpose criterion. It's a catch-all provision, if you wish. And this is, in fact, to prevent any misuse of chemicals by anyone under any circumstances. So that's really a total ban on the use of chemicals to harm people or environment. Very broad definition, if you wish. But in Syria, again, whatever we found was based on science. Therefore, and by independent experts. We are an independent organization. We are an autonomous organization. We have our own decision-making bodies, and we provided our report to the state parties, which are also endorsed by the Security Council later on. So all this, I think, could not be contested. Now, the issue is more, the question is more, who did it? So this is not within our mandate, within the mandate of the OPCW. This is the mandate of the Joint Investigative Mechanism established by the Security Council. Therefore, we hope that the JIM work will be successful.
What I want to know from you is this. Back in 2013, the Nobel Peace Prize Committee awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, saying, quote, for their extensive work to eliminate chemical weapons, and went further that the organization have defined the use of chemical weapons as taboo under international law. Recent events in Syria, where chemical weapons have been used, put this to reality. How much did the Nobel Peace Prize serve as a moral boost to your work globally?
I think it did indeed, and it helped our, in fact, staff who were just about to be deployed to Syria in the midst of civil conflict. And this was really, from a security point of view, a very delicate mission. And we had sufficient volunteers. 6 of our experts were ready to go immediately. But when we heard the Nobel Peace Prize, of course, this has happened at the very right time, and this was a huge moral boost to our staff. But it's also, the Nobel Peace Prize has also raised, in fact, the profile of the organization, not only its achievements, but what remains to be done. So it's extremely important that the international community is more aware of the challenges and of what remains to be done, and what, in fact, this organization could do also in the future. So the relevance of the organization, the capacity which needs to be allocated to this organization, I think it will happen thanks also to the Nobel Peace Prize, which helped us to raise our profile.
You are very much aware of the tensions in North Korea today. How worried are you when you see the ping pong between the Russians, the Americans, the North Koreans over their nuclear program? How much is it of a worry to an organization like yours?
Again, the nuclear issues are being handled elsewhere. We are, in fact, dealing only with chemical weapons, preventing their use, preventing their proliferation, and so on. But my hope is that this issue will be solved diplomatically. There is a need for stepping up all diplomatic efforts.
Don't you think that at one moment, to stop all this nonsense, like some extremists will say, I'm sorry to use that expression, there should just be a bombing of the section and that nonsense doesn't repeat itself? Should that be used?
You mean military force?
You heard Donald Trump saying that there will be fire and fury. Should that be
actually
effectively be used?
It's not up to me to comment on all this. I think it goes beyond my mandate. But again, I hope that this will be solved politically.
Well, you are found in Cameroon very few, probably with the exception of South Africa. No other African country, except my statistics are wrong, can boast of a chemical material. Why are you in Cameroon at this particular time of the year?
Actually, I think there's a misperception about our organization, and because of also it may be due to its name. We are not dealing only with the destruction of chemical weapons, but also we want to promote the peaceful use of chemistry. We have several capacity building activities which are being run throughout the world. We invite experts, chemistry experts. We train them, and we hope that these experts will go back to their countries and contribute to the technological and economic development of their own countries. The chemistry has evolved greatly throughout the world, and especially in Asia. Now more than half of the chemical industry is based in Asia. And we think Africa is another continent which may develop further its chemical industry. We already see some signs of it, and we want to contribute to this. After all, chemistry has greatly contributed to the
and Cameroon is your starting point, if I understand
actually, that. Cameroon is one of the leading countries in Africa which was able to make progress in the implementation of our convention. It developed its mechanisms and legislation based on the convention last year, and we think that's a very active country. That's why we are also welcoming that Cameroon is hosting an event yesterday, today, and tomorrow, bringing together 12 different African countries' representatives. And the intention is, in fact, to improve the implementation of the convention in Africa.
Finally, you have spent so many years in the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You serve as the ambassador to NATO, many other European countries, to the United Nations, and you have roughly 30 to 35 years of diplomatic experience at the highest level of the global corridors of power. When you see at the way the discourse amongst the world's leading nuclear chemical powers evolve, do you foresee the possibility of a damaging nuclear weapon use beyond the limits of Bhopal explosion, which was an industrial accident, beyond Chernobyl, beyond Hiroshima and Nagasaki? I remind you that before dying, Charles de Gaulle was very pessimistic of this.
I had the opportunity to go to Hiroshima a few years ago, and I met with some survivors over there. I listened to them, and their plight is really heartbreaking.
You know why I asked that question, right?
Yeah.
In the world of today, we talk of mother of all bombs, father of all bombs. Those are terms coming from Washington and Russia or Moscow.
I should say that the weapons of mass destruction, as we call them, be it nuclear, biological, or chemical, should never be used. And the international community needs to do everything possible to prevent it to happen.
The Director General of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, thank you very much indeed for being guest on Globewatch.
Thank you, Charles.
You're welcome.